All right, welcome to Comic Book Radio. I'm your host, Peter Cimetti, and this is episode 166. Tonight I've got on three guests tonight. Kat ROCHA, RALTS BLOODTHORNE, and ISHIRO FINNEY. We're going to be talking about paranormal storytelling, aliens and cryptids specifically. So it should be a fun show. Should be a very fun show. Before we bring them on, I want to say hello to those of you in the chat right here real quick. We got Rick here. What's up, Rick? We got Wolf10 Media. How's it going, Wolf10? To Weldy's here too. How's it going, my friend? Hope you're doing well. We got Don Giles in the house as well. What's up, Don? Kevin Simmons is here too. How's it going, Kevin? We got Janelle here. I hope it's either Ginelle or Janelle. I'm going to go with that. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. But thank you for being here tonight. Undead Ramen is here. What's up, Undead? Frederick in the house. How's it going, Frederick? Hope you're doing well. We also have Grape Nuka Cola. How's it going, Grape Nuka Cola? Hope you're doing well. We also have Desty. Desty. How you going, Desty? How you doing? Shrek PMC. How's it going, Shrek? Thank you for being here tonight. And Captain Von Doom Finity Temporis Maximus. Wow, I didn't think they'd let you put that many letters on a YouTube thing. But they did. Greetings to you. All right, we also have, hey, look at that. Cat's in the chat as well. Right there. And on the panel in just a second, too. We got William here, too. How's it going, William? Hope you're doing well. Let's see. It says, my personal opinion for paranormal storytelling is knowing when to suspend belief. Well, it is up to the storyteller to enable you to do that, not to the reader. Sometimes it's successful, sometimes it isn't. But we'll be talking a bit about some of that tonight as well. Urban Verse, what's up, Urban Verse? Hope you're doing well. Let's see. It's always funny when they give up with my name. Destior545. Destior4. I want to say like Destroyer. You know, my brain's all like scrambling that. But hey, Mega, what's up? Hope you're doing well. All right, so without further ado, let's bring them on. So many people on tonight, I have to switch up the banner of the show. So without further ado, let's say hello. Give a big Comic Book Radio welcome to Kat ROCHA, RALTS BLOODTHORNE, and ISHIRO FINNEY. What's up, guys?
Hey.
Hey.
Hello.
How you guys doing?
I'm doing fine.
I've been
Great.
looking forward to this.
Sure
I
about
really
that,
enjoyed
RALTS?
this
You
show.
okay, RALTS? You
Yeah,
like...
I'm fine.
Okay, because, all right.
I always sound like this.
All right, because for a second I was like, okay, what happened? RALTS didn't
No,
sound
I'm
so out of sorts before the show started, but all right. So you guys are you've been on the show before, Jay and Kat, and it was always a great conversation talking to you guys about these topics. I'm very curious about talking to RALTS tonight. You come highly recommended from Kat.
Oh, wow.
So,
that's nice.
yes. Yeah. So I'm very curious to see what you guys all have to say about tonight's topic in terms of paranormal storytelling, especially focusing on aliens and cryptids. But before we get started, I guess let's give a quick refresher for those in the chat. Now, there are three of you here, so we'll start with, I guess we'll have RALTS go first, because this is the first time for him being on the show.
What am I supposed to say?
Just a little bit about you and what it is you do.
Small town guy with a big imagination. I write books. That's about it.
All right.
That sums it up.
Don't be so modest. RALTS currently has a series that has over 12 books in it. I don't really want to call it space opera, but definitely a lot of aliens in it. Not only that, he's written for tabletop RPGs.
Very nice.
And
Look
he's a
at that,
bestseller
RALTS.
on this with the whole humanity.
He is a bestseller.
Look at this guy. Very humble.
So
He's
go
the
check
man
it.
living the dream. He's the guy that wrote the story, put the story up, and people said, holy crap, it's great, and just started buying it.
Mm-hmm.
He built it, and they came.
Yeah, wish we all could be so lucky.
I got lucky.
But,
Well, now that Kat and Ishi have provided the bio for RALTS, Kat and Ishi provide one for yourselves as well.
do you want to go first, or shall I?
Okay, well then I'll go first.
Okay.
Why, hello there. I'm J. ISHIRO FINNEY, author and alien in a human suit, and I am currently the author of the best damn pop culture book you'll ever read, called Boobs of Steel, available on Amazon right now. And trust me, it's not what you think, but it is damn good. I've written other stuff, but we're here to talk about Ralts's work, so.
Yes. And I am Kat ROCHA. I am the owner and editor-in-chief of 01publishing.com. As you can see in my nameplate there, go to 01publishing.com, where you will find the absolute best in horror and science fiction, prose and comic books. So please go check it out. So yes, I do know a thing or two about writing science fiction and paranormal. Also, as I've been on this show several times, I know a thing or two about cryptids.
Yeah, just a thing or two.
Yep.
Just a thing or two. Yeah, thank you guys so much for being here tonight. I'm really looking forward to this. And let's see, Janelle says Ralts is being modest. He's also a kick-ass GM.
That
and
he
Undead
is.
says best GM ever. So there you go, Ralts. They are showering you with praise.
Yeah, yeah. Pardon me why I panic.
No, you're
right,
doing
so-
fine. You're doing fine.
Now, since we do have the three of you guys on here, I'm not going to do the thing where I like pick people to speak and, it's like a classroom or whatnot. So please feel free to interject whenever you wish. In terms of, I'll kick it off with paranormal storytelling. Now, in terms of that subject, why do you think that people are drawn specifically to this kind of subject?
I would say the easiest answer to that is the unknown. It's the thing that fascinates us. We are drawn to the unknown. I think it's one of the things that makes us unique as a species, is that we're most sane creatures, I think, would hear the noise in the woods and say, you know what, let's just stay away from that. We're the species that, okay, hey, let's go look at that. It might kill me, but I want to know what it is. But no, I think it's the unknown aspect that we're just driven towards. That, and then there's also the warped mirror of who we really are. When you watch a horror movie, like a war movie, it's a crucible. And when the chips are down, that's when you see who people really are.
I like
There's
that.
also the vicarious part. It's okay to be scared for a paranormal spooky story because you're not really in danger. So you get to have the excitement of being frightened and feeling vicarious danger without actually, having some weirdo with a mask chase you down the street with a chainsaw. You get the same responses without the same fear.
Yeah, you get to be at a very safe distance from the
But-
horror and danger.
But Ralts, you were the guy with the mask and the chainsaw, weren't you?
Yes.
Well, then you're at a very safe distance from the danger.
Yeah, then I don't have to worry about it. Yeah. What, aren't you going to call the cops? Why? Nobody knows you're here.
Now, Kat, in particular with paranormal storytelling, what are you drawn to specifically about it?
Well, for me, I think I brought this up on a previous show, but I grew up in a haunted house. So for me, though I've taken upon myself to do a lot of research into cryptids, the thing that fascinates me the most and still does is hauntings and ghost sightings and those sorts of encounters. And for me, the biggest unknown for any of us is what's beyond the veil. And so the concept of things coming back through or having never left when they should have gone through, it's an aspect of our reality that greatly fascinates me. And yes, I explore it in fun and safe ways, as Ishi put it, like, reading horror books like Matheson's Hell House. But at the same time, I also like researching scam artists who prey upon people's need for those answers, and what they do in order to manipulate others because of that need. Also folklore. I love all aspects of those things. I was, as evident by the yokai on the wall. You can't see it right now, but there's a giant skeleton on my wall, and 2 ghosts haunting kabuki actors.
Oh,
So-
okay. Is that the painting that's above you?
Yep. See.
Not to mention
Oh,
all the
okay.
skulls you collect.
Yeah, all the skulls that I collect. I've got a reliquary that I've created over there. You can't see this room. This room looks like a mausoleum. So
I think I know why you might be haunted, Kat. Now, in terms of, you mentioned it with research and whatnot, in terms of things like that, has there been anything along the lines of your research for all of you guys when you're doing these kinds of stories, you're creating in this aspect, where you were very inspired by something that you researched, maybe even just almost too fascinated by it to the point of obsession and just diving deeper into researching that specific event or topic?
That's everything I write, actually. I think that's one of the things that is inevitable. If I'm going to write something, it's almost like somebody had called it method writing, in which that's all I listen to, that's all I watch, that's all I read is that topic. When I was doing Case File Arkham, which is Lovecraftian noir, all I did was watch old noir films, to get the language down, listen to media of the era, and just deep dive into Lovecraft.
And to the current topic, your ufology collection is extensive.
I need to actually write something about UFOs.
Like nonfiction based or fiction?
Both. Well, actually, I
That'd be
did do a
interesting.
fiction story about UFOs. It's going to appear in Sursova in one of the coming issues,
Ah, very nice.
called Midnight Caller.
I was doing a little bit of research for Strange Locations for a source book, and the Winchester House was one that I researched, and that was very strange. The guy who founded Winchester Rifles, after he died, his wife felt she was haunted, and so on the advice of spiritualists, she completely redesigned her house with stairways that just end at walls, doorways that go nowhere, because that would help keep the spirits at bay and as well as keep them occupied. And that was interesting reading about that whole thing, the construction, how it was done. You could take tours and stuff. I never got around to that. A lot of local legends I looked up, ghost ships, none of the ever-present spectral train that everybody hear, that you hear out in the country, that's supposedly a train that wrecked in the 1800s, stuff like that. But
And the thought behind the Winchester House being the victims of the Winchester rifle,
yes,
correct?
Yes. You don't really hear about that much anymore, but I thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
When I was also doing tabletop role-playing game, I looked up a lot of stuff on medieval opinions, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but the amount of people burned as a witch in Europe, witches, werewolves, and vampires, was in the tens of thousands. You hear a lot about, the American witch hunters. No. What they were doing in Germany during that period of time was tens of thousands of people. I mean, it was as little as finger length would determine whether or not you went on the pyre. It was pretty weird to find out.
Yeah, was there even any actual burning at the stake that took place in America? I'm pretty sure it was, drownings and hangings and crushing.
Yeah, crushing.
Not that those aren't horrible, but
from what I saw, burning at the stake was mostly a European thing. France was big on burning at the stake.
France was burning at the stake. England was really big on, not kidding, if you weigh the same as a duck, then you're a witch, and they would drown you.
Yeah.
If you did you say it as a duck?
Yes, Monty Python and the Holy Grail was 100% correct.
How did they determine that? I'd imagine that most people don't weigh the same as a duck.
They'd tie you up and put you on a pole and dunk you in the water until you drowned.
Oh, well, okay. Wow. So very, very accurate weight measurement. Good grief. Man. Now, in terms of how a lot of this stuff has influenced the paranormal, now not in a fictional kind of setting, not in a storytelling way. Now, thinking more in nonfiction based on stuff that's occurred and stuff that's happened, and that maybe has been inspired fiction, but these aren't fictional accounts. Now, in terms of the things that have occurred, things like this, things like witch hunts and things like the stories of monsters that people have sworn up and down are 100% real. Why do you think there is such a compulsion among people in terms of coming up with not just these kinds of stories, but that then they spread throughout generations upon generations upon generations, and also that there's so many of these things that where there's a startling similarity across the entire world of various cultures through various points in times that have pretty much almost dead on the exact same kinds of stories?
Why do I think that happens?
Yeah, why do you think that this kind of thing would occur? Because it just seems so almost impossible that people who, as far as we know, shouldn't have been able to have communicated with each other. And yet there's so many similarities, almost dead on, to the point that it's really eerie and it's strange. Now, it can't just be people coming up with stuff out of imagination or whatever it may be. They must have been seeing something in some capacity that was a similar thing. Or maybe it is imagination. But why do you guys think it may be?
I've got a mixed answer for you that could possibly do both. Now, why are there so many parallel mythologies? One answer could be, we all basically started somewhere around Hungary and Eastern Europe, and then went down into Egypt and Samaria, and then back up into China, from Greece to the British Isles, and they all kind of came from the same seed, these stories. And there's definitely a lot of truth in that for a lot of mythologies, but not all. On the other hand, there is the other one, the Shadow Man. That is universal. It doesn't matter what culture. You can live in complete isolation, have never ever heard of it, not even had a thing, ever even been aware that there was such a phenomena. And the Shadow Man may appear to you in your dreams or your night terrors. And that is a universal phenomena.
Well,
it's even diagnosed.
When you get to vampires and werewolves and ghosts, have you ever seen a dead body that's been that hasn't been embalmed and has been pretty much exposed for a little while? It's pretty fearsome looking. A lot of times there's dried blood around the mouth, or what appears to be dried blood. So you have illnesses falling, and people are dying, and they all kind of have the same thing. And pox, you have a tendency to scratch your neck because of your collar. The collar would get dirty. You'd scratch your neck and leave marks. Well, they start digging, somebody sometime either found a dead body or dug it up. And what you had was the flesh had desiccated and withdrawn, making the fingernails look longer. In some cases, the tip of the finger bone came out. The gums draw back from the teeth, making them look elongated. The eyes collapse, and you get the blackish around the eyes first because of decay. And what you have a vampire right there. As far as werewolves go, a lot of people think, when they think of a wolf, they think wolves are the size of, say, a pit bull. I don't think they're very big. The wolves that were in Europe were pretty much wargs. I mean, a lot of people don't realize, but London, France was besieged by man-eating wolves for 6 years in a row, to the point where they would literally attack city guard patrols, kill them, and eat them. Now, in Europe at the time, door handles, if they had them, were levers. Well, so they try to figure out, well, how do these wolves get in the house to attack the family? Well, a wolf would be scratching at the door, hit the lever, it opens up. Now they're in with the family. They eat. You have 5 or 6 of them. You only see 1 or 2. You only see like 1 or 2 of the scouts. The rest are off to the side, or they're a mile or 2 away. And so the whole wolf thing rushes in there. They eat everybody. They rush away. The bitches go back and throw up the meat for the puppies. So they find wolf tracks They come up to the door. The door has been opened. The family is gone. Of course, it's a werewolf. And they look and they'll see like a single set of tracks go up to somebody's house and leave, and they'll think, well, that guy's a werewolf. And it spreads because correlation does not equal causation. And that's one method it spreads. For example, the Penelaligan is how it's pronounced. Female vampire, she soaks her intestines in vinegar in order to cram them into the body. The stomach cavity bursts, and the intestines all fall out. But of course, that's a vampire because somebody accused her. And a lot of the physical stuff is based on decay and mistaking. And these people were desperately trying to. One thing these stories came about was people desperately trying to figure out a way to explain the world at the time with what they knew. And that's why that's why I have a lot of common ones. As to the Shadow Man effect, you could say that's a glitch in the brain. A lot of people say that you see grays because of how your brain, when you first wake up before everything turns back on from sleep, how you see shapes and people. Sleep paralysis is your gross motor control hasn't unlocked yet because your gross motor control is largely turned off while you're sleeping. Stuff like that. But I believe that it's shared human experience is the biggest one. Sorry.
No, that was great.
Yeah.
Well, no, the thing is I like that explanation because you've given it an extremely logical material world explanation. These are the probably the 99% of the time that's what it is. But then on the flip side of the coin, you're the only person I know that has seen some certain shit. I utterly believe you, like the NVG ghosts, which fascinate
those are
me.
weird. And then
What have you seen, Waltz?
We had a problem where you could see a guy on NVGs, but you couldn't see him even when we popped a flare. And then we popped a regular flare. We popped a 203 flare. We had somebody pop a mortar flare. You couldn't see him. But as soon as it got dark again, and you looked at the NVGs, the son of a bitch just standing out there. And it wasn't just one pair doing it. It was like 4 or 5. And it was really fucking strange. It only happened like 2 nights, and everybody just blew it off. This was all the way back in 91. I either hit a bear that was running on its hind legs, or I almost hit Bigfoot up in the Pacific Northwest.
Man, wow.
Well, the NVG ghosts really interest me because that's like a documented phenomena. They're like bases that have the footage.
So are they only showing up at a certain light spectrum, apparently?
Yeah, where they'd see people moving around, sometimes with detail, sometimes just a dark figure. And it would only show up on night vision.
Yeah, it's probably nowhere near what RALTS experienced, but I did see footage on an airport where they had the night vision camera going, and the deck crew at the airport were just going about their business, and the guys watching the cameras are like, there is a woman standing on the tarmac right where you guys are working. Why aren't you stopping her? And you see like 10 people start gathering around the area, moving around. They've got searchlights, they've got everything going.
They'd hit it with the flashlight and it was gone. And then they'd pull the flashlight away and it was on the camera again.
Yeah,
but they couldn't see it.
It was
weird. When I was working with Force 21, I had somebody come up with a good reason. Because I mentioned that because we're testing the replacement for the NVG7s. And he said, since the NVGs run off of ambient infrared, what it is it's a cold spot, but the software in the NVGs puts it together in a person shape. So you're getting a cold spot mixed with software. I'm like, okay, then how come we could see it from multiple angles? And it was what I fucking look like. Walked away. But I mean, that's the closest I've ever heard. But I don't know how good that is because NVGs pick up all kinds of strange stuff.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's odd if it's matrixing to become like a human shape. I mean, I know we can kind of do that all the time. You see shapes in clouds and whatnot, but that's us doing that. To see like a device putting it out in that kind of shape is a little more fascinating to me.
Yeah, I know of 2 military bases that had like incidents where they've captured it all, it's documented. They couldn't explain it.
The weird one is when they trip the motion sensors.
Really?
Okay, that's interesting.
You get a spot out there and they're like, I got somebody, it looks like a silhouette of somebody out by, say for example, camera 7, say bunker 9 motion sensors, and you go all the way out there and like, there ain't shit out here, you're shining your flashlight on, like, okay, it's gone. You walk away and they go, okay, motion sensor's going off again, you're too far away, we've got that shape there, you hit the headlights on the truck and it disappears. And you never get a good explanation. You hear, ambient humidity spot with cold spots. Like, just fucking say you don't know what it is and I can go back to work. It's like, look, you want me to bang a few shots through it, see what scares it off? But,
well, sorry.
Yeah.
RALTS, I have to tell you, I should have told you before the show started, try to refrain from the F-bombs.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry. My apologies.
It's all right. But yeah, this is a pretty crazy stuff. I've definitely seen stuff like this being documented and talked about before, and I've seen people showing similar results for these kinds of things. But I haven't ever met anyone who's seen something like that. I've only kind of heard of or have seen it, TV shows and documentary reports and whatnot, which is always like, I trust it at arm's length. But that's fascinating, man. Now, how do you guys find within the parallels of what's occurring in modern time? Because it's easy to explain, okay, superstition, trying to figure out the world and all the unknowns that were there. Do you see any parallels today that are occurring where people seem like they're leaning more towards the superstitious or the supernatural to explain something that may, at least, have a conventional explanation?
Well, for my part, I'm finding that people are leaning more towards the paranormal, not to explain something that's going on in their world, but to bring something magical back into it. So much is explained by science now. It's been brought up multiple times on our shows, how the second they discover a new plant or a new animal or whatever, it's cataloged and given a scientific designator, and a gajillion pictures are taken of it, and now it's just entered into our reality. It's just another thing, just like a cat is or an elephant is. It's not fantastic anymore. So people look to cryptids and they look to ghosts and specters and other things like that to bring back some of the magic, really.
I keep talking. Go ahead, Ralts.
Everybody is one bad day or 3 days with limited food and water from throwing science aside and worshiping a strange colored rock. In a world that's becoming increasingly complex, with sometimes it feels like science is out of control, the paranormal and superstition doesn't seem that far-fetched. I mean, what do you call conspiracy theories? Spoilers. I mean, yeah. A lot of people have turned to the supernatural because there is a lot of stuff you can't explain. I mean, sure, if you live in the city, you can go your whole life and tell yourself you've never seen one strange thing. But you get 100 miles from the city, and that's when stuff starts, going sideways on you.
Do you think we're seeing that because there's becoming more and more of a distrust of authority, especially when it comes to information?
Yes.
Actually, that's closer to what I was going to say, was that we kind of hit this era, I think, starting in the 1950s, where you'd hear these in movies, too, where people say, oh, well, that doesn't happen anymore. This is the modern age. Magic isn't real anymore. We live in the modern age. And I always thought that was just kind of a turn of phrase. But it turns out in that era that there really was this notion that magic had died. Science had replaced it. And we went into this era now we're entering into, in which science is so sure of itself And
It's
academia
smug.
is so smug with the notion that there is nothing they can't figure out or explain, that it's gotten to the point where their own science is based on faith. They themselves are having to turn with a God in the gaps argument to explain their own damn theories. And the fact is, yeah, we don't know everything. There is phenomena that we don't understand and that science can't explain, and science just doesn't want to admit it. I mean, let's be honest here. Simulation theory is just creationism for atheists. That's all it is.
Well, I can see the perspective on that, because it is just being touted about as, you're explaining how something is being constructed and being ran through, and you have all the different kind of fundamentals there, talking about various plans at play, various parts that certain beings or everyone plays. So it could be kind of boiled down in a very almost unbelievably sadly cynical way of saying that it's all a simulation, and I think that there's a way to look at it, though, and not necessarily say, well, it's a simulation, so therefore it's not real. I think those are two different things, and I think some people really run with that in terms of like, oh, it's not real, but you're defining reality always through how you perceive it. So reality is different for a lot of people.
Well, what I mean with the simulation theory is it's gotten to the point now, we see a pattern we don't understand. Oh, we see a mathematical glitch in our equation that we can't explain. We find limits to our measurements. Oh, well, that's because it's a simulation, aka God did it, magic. What's the difference?
The other thing is, there's been since I was a teenager, there's been this thing where things aren't allowed to be amazing anymore. Mm-hmm. People, things, events, none of it's allowed to be amazing. They always want to reduce everything to the least common denominator. Take away anything special, take away anything wondrous, and completely obliterate it and leave you with a flat gray space where there's no room for wonder. There's no room for anything to be good or neat. And so I think a lot of people are just like, I'm tired of scientific explanations because half of them you give me are complete crap. Maybe I just want to have some wonder in my life. I know what a rainbow is. I know what caused it, prismatic effect through precipitation. That doesn't mean I can't stand there and appreciate it. But the fact that so much of the world is full of joyless people, they would rather try to just break it down to a rainbow is nothing but light being refracted through water droplets, rather than it's a rainbow. So I think there's a rejection of that also.
Yeah, there's this real clinging of the material world that I noticed that, I don't know if you guys know what I mean by that, but there seems to be this obsession that everything has to be explained away, or the only thing that matters is the material realm. And I remember that argument between Jordan Peterson, and Sam Harris. And Sam Harris was such a materialist. He couldn't understand or grasp how something could be mythologically true, or metaphorically true, or morally true, or morally real, but not materialistically real. He couldn't grasp it. They just could not get past that point. And I think that's what we're struggling with right now, is a lot of people are terrified of there being any other truth than the one they can hold on to and say, okay, it'll pay my rent.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a good point. What were you going to say, Kat? I'm sorry.
I was just going to go off of that. Yeah, the fact that regardless of whether or not there is an actual creature that is Bigfoot walking around, has gotten to the point where that's not the important thing. It's what he symbolizes to people. Just the existence, the idea of Bigfoot, and what he means to people. And it's amazing how the idea of Bigfoot, how many people I've talked to where they've said, yes, I've had an encounter, yes, I've had an experience, and it's almost religious to them, even if it was just a sound in the woods or a shape, in the forest. It's touched them in a certain way. Science can't do that.
Now, do you think that there's something to be said with the fact that we're seeing a tremendous amount of science? Now, it's not all science, but there's a tremendous amount of science that's becoming ever increasingly backed and supported by government approval and funding. Do you think there's something to be said for that in terms of why we're seeing almost like this borderline arrogance and a combination of dismissiveness against these kinds of topics?
They're deciding what reality is. I've written it in a paper. It's true. The government gave me money for it. It's true. Shut up. Don't question it.
Because if anything, there's a tremendous amount of scientists that are out there trying to...
Well,
As soon as money enters the equation, I no longer believe you.
Yeah. Well, and to finish my thought, I was going to say there's a lot of scientists out there that are arguing the established, or at least paid by the establishment, scientists, and they're often run out of town. And in a lot of cases, you'll come back to it, and maybe decades later, it'll take time, and you'll see that now they finally admit that those results are valid, and we should start looking in that direction. Now, is that kind of same as it ever was? Because it kind of seems like it sometimes when you look back in the realm of it. It might not be science per se or government per se, but some kind of authoritative control dynamic that's controlling the flow and access to information.
Do you remember when the government started saying there was UFOs out there? Do you remember what everybody started saying? If the government is telling us there's UFOs, I no longer believe in them. This is a government who told us that lead paint was safe, that asbestos was safe. They told us that a ton of stuff was safe, that it's backed by the science, and the science is settled. And now, well, congratulations, asbestos gives you cancer, lead paint makes you retarded, and smoking cigarettes kills you.
A lot of FDA-approved drugs. You wait a year. You see the, did this kill you or a loved one?
Yep. The science is settled is the biggest lie in the world.
Well, they're not even actually conducting science anymore. It is a form of faith.
It is. We have decided what the outcome will be, so we will adjust the data until we get what we want.
And to make things worse is it's been proven over and over again that the Wistar mice and rodents used in drug testing have been so inbred over the last 100 or so years, 100 years, I believe. They have been bred to the point that they're bred to give the results the researchers want.
Yeah,
they're no longer accurate.
Now, Shrek, you keep saying not true throughout. These are demonstrably true things we're talking about. They've happened time and time again. They currently still happen. Now, it doesn't mean that they are true across the board. And as I was saying, there's a lot of scientists that are constantly fighting against this kind of stuff. But there is 100%, you can find a ton of this about government-backed research where they only will approve and publish that which they want to put. Oh, it's tragically true.
Mark Stein is in court right now because he dared to show that the guy that came up with the hockey stick graph for global warming was full of shit.
Alzheimer's research.
There you go, right there. And it's like, what?
Alzheimer's research, they set it back decades because the paper that the accepted science was all based on a falsified paper. So we've spent 30 years doing drug trials and scientific research based on one falsified paper. So,
Shrek, I wish science was self-correcting, but what we really need to do is break the priestdom of academia and get the government and money the hell out of it.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting is I find that this goes full circle back to storytelling, where we get to actually run our own simulation, more or less, as storytellers, and many others that do that, in terms of trying these ideas and these notions and these theories out. And maybe you don't set it up as this is scientifically proven, but you're able to actually put those ideas out there, and maybe it kind of inspires someone else to go, can that be? Is this possible? Almost like here's your hypothesis through a story, and other people can go and kind of take that baton and run the race.
That's like for decades, everybody said the appendix was a useless organ, that it didn't do anything, and now research shows that it's actually necessary for your gut biome. But they spent decades saying that it was a useless organ because it gets infected and goes hot. And so all of a sudden now they're like, well, you kind of need that to regulate your intestines, and it's like, okay, because they said it was a vestigial organ, it didn't have any use. And then somebody else comes along and they got the papers and everything. The struggle to prove that the appendix actually had a function. I mean, it was a huge problem. And I don't mind. See, I mind what the science is settled. I hate it when they say it's settled and it can't be any other way. Okay, when it comes to math, yes. When it comes to physics and small particle research and anything else, any large complex system, telling me the science is settled, no, it's not. Because every time we make an advancement, we go back and we look over everything else and say, did we screw up by using flawed research? But they've stopped doing that. And it drives me crazy because, oh, it's settled. Well, yeah, 2 + 2 is 4 is settled. But where does a tachyon go? Or does a tachyon even exist is not settled.
Well, unfortunately, science is not dictated by actually wanting to discover how our world works. Science is dictated by who's getting the grants, whose narrative is the one who's getting the funding. And if you come up with a theory that throws somebody else's theory who's currently getting the grants, out the window, everyone gets mad at you until enough people side with you that you become the popular kid, and then you get the grants, and that's how it works. It doesn't work the way we all want it to, and it's always been that way. If you look at how medical advancements have progressed since the Victorian era, they don't progress because, wow, somebody found a new way of performing this procedure or a new way of doing this thing. No, they progressed because enough people decided that they were tired of being put down by the establishment, that they were going to do it on their own, and the people said, hey, I like what that person's doing, I'm going to go over there and give them money, and then the medical establishment sides with them. It's really disgusting how much that happens, and it's that way for all of the sciences,
and it's been getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, now especially where there's a tremendous amount of profit motive involved. It's like the same thing with news reporting and people that are like, you look at that and go, well, there's a lot of profit to be gained across the board, and there's a lot of control as well through that profit. So of course, this isn't a non-profit done by the goodness of people's hearts, and you get a couple people that are in there that soon maybe discover that the system is far more broken than they possibly could have imagined. But this isn't the kind of thing where people are. I think there's a tendency to romanticize a lot of that, and that's unfortunate. But it's not. It's obviously not that everybody goes in there and the whole thing is just full of evil people trying to do evil things all the time. I think that there's a tremendous power dynamic, obviously, that's shifted in one respect. But in terms of this stuff, with the way that things are playing out, in terms of trying to find out why something is unknown and what are these mysteries that we can try to explain, it really is sad to see how many times there's just complete dismissiveness towards so many things that just you can look at it, piece together the puzzle very, very simply and say, yes, there's something there to be based off of. We should look into this further. And it's like, no, it's answered. It's already fine. It's already we did this already. It's fine. And then years later, eventually.
Sorry, your research isn't ESG. You don't get any money.
That's a whole other thing, which is like, wow, just to add another layer of insanity to the equation, which should have nothing. That should have nothing to do with it. And if anything, that's the ultimate way to control the conversation on that. Well, what kind of individual made this discovery? What were the superficialities of this individual? That means that this discovery has merit or it doesn't, and that's startling to see that kind of thing become accepted.
As I cover, completely pimping this for absolutely no reason, but as I cover in Boobs of Steel and the whole thing about Amazons and the reality, it's about the Amazon throughout culture, as in our media, and as why it's important as an archetype. But I get into the reality of the Amazons and who they may have been. And I had to go through and explain how many times the science had been, or archaeology this time, had been fudged to meet with this notion that we used to be the communist matriarchy that was a paradise that men wrecked. How much was lied about? The fact that, what's his name? Ingalls made one complete bullcrap study that said this is proof that the family unit is unhuman and anti-human, and he pushed forward and popularized this paper that claimed we were once a socialist matriarchy, and during those times it was great. No fact behind it whatsoever. That is the only reason it got any acknowledgement, and continued on up until around the 60s and 70s, even in the West, is regarded as being legit. And it was strictly because the communists wanted it to back up the idea of destroying the American family.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of different ideologies that have gotten kind of like the Trojan horse of ideologies being put throughout to dismantle. I mean, and again, it's funny because we could look at all of this and examine the entirety of civilization. If we go back and back with every single era of humanity and see the various playbooks being used again and again and again, except like they change every now and then. I think now we're in the reverse psychology kind of Orwellian, we want to keep you safe. And if you hear that, they don't want to keep you safe. So it's a really interesting thing. And it's just like what Ralts was talking about before in terms of if the government were to give disclosure on aliens and whatnot, all of a sudden you'd be like, all right, don't believe that. So it's become this strange system where there's been so many lies that it's like that boy who cried wolf on an unbelievable scale.
After 2017 and the handling of a certain virus, nobody trusts the medical industry anymore.
Well,
I mean, distrust in medicine's gone. I mean, nobody trusts medicine.
Everybody forgets what happens to that boy. The wolf eats him.
Mm-hmm.
Not the flock, him.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, there's tremendous storytelling right there. But it seems like sometimes we don't want to learn from stories. Now, we're seeing a lot of things play out, obviously, in real life. What are we seeing playing out
there you go.
in the fictional aspect of things and storytelling that seem like they're either trying to be the canary in the coal mine, they're trying to give that warning, or certain things that are trying to play out a narrative that seems to be coming from an established, approved source.
Oh, God, don't get me started.
That's what we're here to do. We're here to get you started. We got at least 9 minutes of it left.
The gentlemen with me probably are going to have different things to bring up, but to tie a bunch of things that we've been talking about together, specifically who's running the narrative and things that are happening in real life. Skinwalker Ranch. Because Skinwalker Ranch is a government op. I don't care. People in the chat, they may not agree with me, but that's fine.
It was a scam by Harry Reid and his buddies to basically milk money out of a useless piece of land.
Yes, and government tax dollars were they were using Skinwalker Ranch to funnel tax dollars into their pockets, and they made up this narrative that this place has got to be the biggest paranormal magnet that has ever existed, in the entire history of the planet, where you get Bigfoots, Wendigos, poltergeists, specific sites
Dinosaurs.
dinosaurs, pterodactyls fly around. Just
Angels.
anything and everything that has ever existed in at least Western culture, maybe some Eastern too, all show up in this one location, and it is so unbelievable. And I've also noticed, maybe it's a plate of shrimp thing, where after I learned about Skinwalker Ranch, I started noticing it in other places. How many other places went from the shadowy, oh, there's something weird happening here, we don't know what, to, yeah, we've got everything and the kitchen sink too haunting this place. Or and
Now to what extent is that? Do you think that that's serving?
I honestly think it's because there's a huge chunk of the population that doesn't have imagination anymore. They can't think outside of what's being presented directly to them. Not only that, they don't want to wait for a narrative to play out, or they don't want that wonder. They want it told to them flat out. Yes, there is this stuff happening. Yes, this is really happening. But they have short attention spans, so it has to happen fast and quick. A big one being, I was watching a program on poltergeist activity, and the host was, he gets sent these video footage of different places around the world, and then he tries to figure out, okay, is this fake or is this real? And there's, in the span of half an hour on this one tape, there was literally 1.5 poltergeist incidences every minute. So in a half an hour, there was more than 30 poltergeist incidences happening on this tape. And it's like, that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen anywhere at any time, and has never happened in the history of, when we started actually paying attention to paranormal activity. So this is totally fake. And yet the guy who has that channel that footage was from, he's got millions of views, and people think it's 100% real, that he is in a real haunted place. And
so at the heart of it, now I'm really obviously people have been setting up scams and frauds for monetary gain for the longest time. But in terms of something like Skinwalker Ranch, now the way that history of that ranch, Robert Bigelow and everything else, and all of that, do you think that there's anything that they're trying to set up as a distraction play, any kind of cover up, even if there's nothing specifically going on maybe at that ranch, but that they're trying to do within Bigelow Aerospace?
Bigelow's a Mirage Man. Basically, he's similar to Rick Doty. He obviously is an asset of Air Force intelligence, and his sole job is that he obviously knows a high level of the actual story, and his job is to go out and lace in the most wild aspects of the truth with that even wilder crap that he spins, and wave his hands to get us not to pay attention to what's going on and what's really happening. I mean, people will talk our ear off on and on and on about Skinwalker Ranch, but did you notice how scared they got with the Phoenix Lights? And to this day, they don't like talking about it. And you know what?
They've tried explaining those away as a military formation, right?
Yeah, except people still, to this day, people still videotape them. People still see them. They're usually not as blatant as flying right over Phoenix, but there was one that went over 29 Palms a few months ago, filmed, no coverage, none. No, but we're going to talk about the crap the Navy's claiming. See what I mean? And the Air Force with Rick Doty, if you're familiar with him, are you familiar with him?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, his whole job was finding true believers or people who had actually stumbled upon something true, and then giving them even more truth and interweaving it with ludicrous notions, and going so far as to fake UFO crash sites and taking these people to them just to mislead.
Do you want to know how
So
you cover up a government conspiracy or a secret project?
You leave
I'll
it
tell
in
you
the
exactly
open.
how the government does it. From my experience as being part of a conspiracy, I will tell you how they do it. They make you sound crazy. Do you know what they used to have the pilot for the first jet airplane wear? This is no shit. You can look it up. They would make the pilot when they were testing the jet airplane, the pilot would wear a gorilla suit with a top hat. So when it was spotted, the questions were asked to these pilots who had seen this jet aircraft was not what was the jet like, because number one, they can't remember. What they were asked about was the gorilla in a top hat with a cigar. Because now you sound like a crazy person. No one will ever believe you. Yep. That's how they covered up. That's how they covered it up when they were test flying it. Because it might get seen by other aircraft. Now that sounds ridiculous until you realize once a pilot saw that gorilla with a top hat, they can't remember what the jet fighter looks like.
Well, now here's the deeper question. Are they concocting a disinformation campaign within and based on real information that they're aware of? Do you think that that's the case?
Oh, no, that's proven. That's true. That's how they do it. You hide it in plain sight, and then you mix it with so much crap that nobody can decipher what's real. They did it with Rendlesham. They did it with Roswell. They did it with... There's a whole long list of them where that was done.
Every time I say I don't believe in conspiracy theories, my wife looks at me for a second and then goes, "You were part of one." So, they make you sound like a complete lunatic. If I start talking about multi-level underground bases and stockpiles and human testing on enclosed areas under duress and stress, you start looking at me like I'm crazy because all you heard was underground bases. And I've had people look at me and say, "Oh, it's impossible to make underground bases. The military's never made any."
Those are the dumbs, right?
Well, they've got a lot of different names, but
I had a friend in high school whose dad had served in Vietnam, and then he was in the U.S. military for a little longer after Vietnam, and that he said one day, this was when they were back stateside, a couple trucks showed up, and they were all told to get aboard. They were driven out to the Mojave Desert in the middle of nowhere. They all got out. An officer said, "One of you is a Russian traitor, and until you find him, you're all staying out here." And then they left. Somebody got killed. They came back, took notes. That was it. I believe him. I don't think he made it up.
What I love is that truth is stranger than fiction. So even trying to attempt to have a conversation about paranormal storytelling, it's so much more interesting to discuss the stuff that influences the paranormal storytelling, because it's weirder and more unusual, I think, than anyone can possibly imagine. So like we could talk about all like the stuff that's coming out of imagination or gets inspired by some of the things that we've researched and whatever experienced even. But those things are inarguably, I think, more interesting than some of the fiction.
I mean, we didn't even get to the wonderful story that still scares the crap out of me, which is the alarm clock story RALTS told.
What's that?
And that creeps the hell out of me. And I'm really skeptical of ghosts.
So it was the 70s. And do you remember those alarm clocks where the digital numbers were painted on pieces of plastic and the wheel would flip over?
Oh, yeah.
Flip them. Okay. And they had a radio in them. You can visualize this thing in your head. Okay, they had the stickers on it to look like wood paneling, and it was a clock radio. So we're going garage sailing, and my older sister sees one. I want it, but I only have a quarter. She's got the money to buy it. She buys it. She lords it over me the whole ride back. She plugs it in her room. Now, that night, my sister comes running into the hallway, screaming at the top of her lungs, wakes us up out of a dead sleep, and she is screaming up and down that her clock is saying her name and telling her to look at it. And my dad, was drunk at the front. He's like, "Go back to fucking bed. Nobody cares." So, she goes in there. Next day, she's all twitchy. And my dad's like, you quit that shit out. You come screaming in the front room. I'm going to beat your ass tonight, right? Middle of the night. My sister comes running in, just screaming her ass off. It said my name. It said my name. It told me to look at it. It kept telling me to look at it. My dad's like, oh, God damn it. He goes and gets the clock. Says, I'm taking it away. After a while, I was like, fuck this. I'm going to plug it in my room. And we hear all this yelling that night. My dad's like, what the hell? Who? Somebody thinks they're a goddamn comedian. Well, clock saying his. So he gives it to me. He goes, here, boy, here's a clock. Oh, great. Thanks. My brother's like, you plug that in. I'm like, we'll plug it in. It's just, it's got to be our older brothers figuring out some way to fuck with our sister and fuck with that. So we plug it in. I'm laying there. And it's like 1 or 2 minutes after midnight when I wake up. RALTS, Bobby, RALTS, Bobby. I wake up, I'm like, what the fuck? Because, I slept light because my mom had a habit of snatching me out of bed.
RALTS, I have to remind you again, F-bombs, please.
Oh, sorry. I'm like, what? And I turn over and I look, and the clock is laying there. And, I didn't look. I was turning over to look when I hear the clock go, look at me. It's like, I froze. I'm like, no.
The clock talked to you?
Yeah, there's a clock. Now, it's a clock radio, mind you. But it's saying my brother and I's name. And I hear my brother. Is the clock telling? I hear, RALTS, Bobby, look at me. My brother's like, nope. We don't scream, because we're boys. You get your ass kicked, you scream like a girl. We get our blanket, go in the front and go to sleep. Next day, my dad's like, what's going on? Why are you two idiots in the front room? Oh, the clock told us to look at it. My dad's like, I'm tired of this. Takes the clock and he goes, I was drunk. Didn't do it. Next day, he's like, okay, that clock's going in the garbage. And, there's probably a reason, I've asked my brothers. As a matter of fact, after telling that story, I called my brother and asked him, hey, do you know if Teddy ever said if he got the clock Sis had to talk to us? And he's like, I don't talk about that clock, and I'm hanging up on you now. But the clock was saying our names and asking us to look at it. And it was like right after midnight. I know it was after midnight because, you know this stuff when you're a kid. Plus my dad wasn't, in the front room yelling at the TV. So the thing is, my sister heard it, and I asked her when my daughter got married. She came to the wedding, and I asked her about the clock, and she was like, I don't allow digital clocks in my home. I was like, well, what about the LED ones? She was like, I don't allow digital clocks in my home. I was like, what about the microwave? She goes, I cover up the clock with tape.
What did the voice sound like?
A stranger. Little higher pitched than an adult, but not as high pitched as a pubescent boy. Definitely wasn't my brother's. One of my brothers, he sounded like he ate gravel for lunch, and the other brother, his voice was raspy from the nom. So it wasn't them. It wasn't my dad because it wasn't a bunch of drunken rambling.
Yeah. Because I used to have like a Fisher-Price microphone when I was a kid, and you can dial it into like an FM station.
Right.
And then you could talk through it.
It wasn't any of my brothers.
Yeah.
But I was always like, okay, that's what really happened. But I talked to my siblings. I talked to Teddy, I talked to Bobby. And Teddy was like, no, it wasn't me. And he actually said the first night that happened, I was in jail. I was like, oh, that's right. And so to this day, we don't know if it was, one of my brothers messing with us, or maybe one of the neighbors, or if it was something with that clock.
Wow.
But to this day, I won't have those kind of clocks in my house.
Creepy though, regardless.
Even if it was somebody, this was California in the 70s, and that means somebody knew all of our names.
Yeah.
That's kind of actually scarier.
Yeah.
So I would prefer to think it was a ghost rather than someone who knew all our names.
Absolutely.
Are we closing up now?
A couple minutes. You got something else?
Oh, okay. Oh, no, for me, I didn't really get into horror fiction and movies at all until my 30s because they used to scare the hell out of me other than aliens. I liked the Alien series. As a kid, everything terrified me. I didn't really dive into horror until I started dealing with the post-traumatic stress. Don't want to get into that right now. But as a kid, I lived in this one house that I was convinced it was haunted, and I recall seeing all sorts of insane crap. Orbs flying around, things moving, apparitions, full body apparitions. I saw lots of just weird crap. Weird shadows that got crawling from room to room, shadows without sources. And I didn't have the best childhood or relationship with my parents. So by the time I got to junior high, I just decided, oh, I'm crazy. I'm just messed up. That's why I see this stuff. My brain's broken. And I remember one year, I was a freshman in high school, and my dad's in the bathroom. I'm waiting for him to come out, and the whole house is dark because he's about to go to bed. And I look over, and I see this kind of imprint of a face, the palms of hands, and kind of a vague hint of a torso coming at me with the mouth open, screaming like face. And I look at that, and my thought is, man, I am really messed up. That's all I thought. At this point, I just didn't care anymore. Now, as soon as we moved, none of this stuff happened. And for a very long time, I just took it as, yeah, that was all in my head. I needed to believe that was all in my head. And then I read up on the entity case, and their description of the full torso apparition was frickin' identical to what I saw that night. So make of that what you will. What?
What did they describe exactly?
Kind of a disembodied face, the hints of arms, upper limbs, or at least, you know how you get an imprint when you press of your face against the glass in your hands?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. And then the beginnings of a torso that just faded out, and that it kind of sparkled or undulated like hot phosphines, if you know what I mean. You familiar with what I mean by that?
Yeah.
When you close your eyes?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's exactly what they described. And that was probably the second scariest thing I ever came across when looking into those cases. The other one was when I found out that I wasn't the only one getting visits from the Shadow Man, and finding out that was a global phenomenon throughout history. That documentary scared the hell out of me.
Oh yeah, I've talked about it before on this show a couple times, weird experiences. Not anymore, but at a place where we lived before this one. Yeah, a couple
but
really
if you want an argument for
shadow people type stuff.
If you want an argument for the Shadow Man being a product of the mind, the only thing I can say is that for a while when they were the worst, he was always semi-solid. He'd come into the room, and he'd pull out a knife that was also a shadow, and the knife would always go right into where the bullet hit me. So that might have been symbolic of some sort. And then I'd wake up screaming.
There was a creepy one when I was a kid, and I asked my sister about it like 10, 15 years ago. But I was a kid, and we lived in a bad trailer park, past the bad side of the tracks. And the ambulance came and got this little old lady. She was just a little tiny thing. A week later, we see her out there in her garden. Well, about a week after that, the ambulance shows up, hauls her off again. A couple days later, she's out there in the garden. You know, when they hauled her out, she was covered with a sheet. Her face was covered. They hauled this little old lady off 6 times, and everybody in the trailer park's talking about it. She had a heart attack. You know, she was in church and had a heart attack. She was in her front yard and had a heart attack, and they pronounced her dead. They pronounced this little old woman dead like 6 times that summer. All of us kids believed she was like some kind of supernatural creature. And when we moved away from the trailer park and we left, I still remember driving away, and she was waving at us from the front yard. And she was a tough old bat. And, but it's still, that was my first encounter with something that might be supernatural. The little old lady that just kept dying. But it was the 70s, she probably keeled over, and they were probably drunk when they tried to, load her into the ambulance.
I like how the majority of your explanations, it was the 70s.
You had to have been alive. You had to have been alive at a
70s was messed up.
I mean, serial killers everywhere, guys coming back from the nom with their heads all messed up.
There's something to be said, though, because it really does seem like this kind of stuff seems to ramp up at certain points in time that revolve around massive, extensive world trauma.
Yeah.
And there's almost like there's some really bad either really bad energy throughout the world, like almost like a distortion of sorts, or at least some kind of mass psychosis taking place that's distorting something, because everything's energy and frequency. So it really does seem like something along those lines.
Things are going to get weirder.
Yeah, and I think that's why even people are noticing right now things are starting to ramp up and whatever too. I think we're starting to see the formation of that kind of stuff over the past easily probably 20 years.
I thoroughly agree with Shrek on the Jungian communal subconscious and the archetypes. I think that that part of our brain is not being fed, that we've become so obsessed with the material world. There's a part of our mind that needs to think symbolically and think in illogical connections and synchronicities, and finding patterns and things that really don't relate, or only relate to us in an emotional sense, not any other logical sense. And it's not being fed, and that I think we're starving for it. And that's, you look at what the things that used to feed that. I mean, let's face it, for most people, Luke Skywalker is more real than Mark Hamill, okay? Because the myth of Mark Hamill had that much impact, or Skywalker had that much impact on all of us. And in the past, that's what fed that part of the brain. So the entertainment we're getting now, the culture we're getting now, is so empty, so laden with propaganda and messaging and Bolshevism.
Yeah, the emotional resonance isn't there
right
in the same capacity at all.
And we're starved for it.
It's reduced to the least common denominator because people don't know how to handle feeling things anymore.
Yeah.
All right, so I've got a guest in the back here. He wants to come on and tell a spooky story.
Ooh.
So everybody, please welcome True Believer. What's up, True Believer?
Hey there.
Hey guys, how are you?
Okay. Nice
Audio good tonight, Pete?
Yes, you're sounding good. But no, man, when he was on with me, whatever that was, a week or two ago, something like that, we had some weird sounds coming through.
You look like Anton LaVey.
Oh,
I'm not sure if that's a compliment.
well, if he looked like me today, that'd probably be proof he really did have a deal with the devil, I guess.
True.
He'd be quite a bit older. But yeah, your alarm clock story reminded me of something that I read about when I was in college. Since the 1930s, and even going back further for earlier technology, but specifically in the 1930s, power companies have been able to transmit large amounts of data through the power lines that feed our houses, right? So theoretically, with the right chipset on a board of any electronic device, just plugging it into your receptacle could theoretically make that a communication device. Just my personal theory. So
interesting.
So the alarm clock, I mean, do we know if that was radio signals?
So wait, are you saying you think someone at the power company was messing with his family?
Well, I don't know that. I'm just saying that theoretically.
It was the 70s. So.
Yes.
Well, yeah, maybe so. Oh, by the 70s, they were able to transmit large amounts of data. And in the 1980s, they had what amounted to early broadband capability with the amount of data that they could send. And the only reason that wasn't leveraged for commercial use was because of the noise on the power lines. We corrupt the data too much for public consumption, but they could transmit their own data frequencies through the power lines. They still do. One would hope that it's just for internal business use, communication between power stations and such. But I'm just saying, theoretically, any device with the right chipset inside of it could become a communication device just by plugging it into the wall.
That's what they used for ARPANET.
Well, ARPANET was the early internet. Yes.
Now, is that your scary story, True Believer?
Well, yeah, I didn't really have a story, just a little tidbit to add, but makes you think, right?
Well, indeed.
Well,
nowadays, but you promised me a scary one, True Believer.
Here's one for you.
With my background in IT, that's plenty scary enough for me.
Yeah, well, now we purchase and sign off on the ability to get spied on a regular basis.
Right, yeah. So how long's it been going on, right?
Here's one for you. Did you know that at one time TV sets were manufactured with a chipset, well, with circuitry that would turn on the TV when the EMS was broadcast, when the EBS was used?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yes.
A lot of people don't know that. I don't know if they still have it, but they used to.
they've got
That's
even
interesting.
scarier stuff in TVs now with smart TVs
Yeah.
that are out there for sure.
That's why I don't want one.
Well, even your mobile phone, when you turn it off, does not stop functioning. It's still communicating over the network.
That's why it never leaves the bedroom. I don't take it with me.
I wouldn't leave mine in my bedroom. I don't want them to hear that shit. Sorry.
Hey, it might be the only entertainment those geeks get, you know.
You know, I used to when I was in the military, when I was in Europe, I had a job where our phone calls were routinely monitored, and we all knew it. And I was on desk duty with a guy, and he was having phone sex with his wife, and he was like, "Oh crap, I gotta get off the phone." And he hears this voice go, "No, don't stop yet. I'm almost there."
Oh Lord.
That actually reminds me of phone calls that got leaked onto the internet from Alexa, because
Oh god.
Alexa listens into your conversations, and they actually have a group of people that listen to like randomly picked calls, and they say
buy
it's
an
for
Alexa.
quality control, but no, they're spying on you really, mainly for marketing purposes. But the calls that got leaked were things like domestics, things like people.
Yeah, I read that report. Yep.
Yeah, getting into fights, other things like that. There's one that you listen to it and it's like, did I just hear someone get murdered? Just the way it sounds. And when it was brought to Amazon, why didn't you do anything? It's like, oh well, it's illegal for us to step in.
Yes. If the government
It's like
surveilled
National
you
Geographic.
yeah,
Why,
if the government
why are you letting
surveilled
that thing kill that thing? You can't step in. Nature.
You guys remember in the second Batman movie, The Dark Knight?
Mhm.
Was it Dark Knight with the Joker, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the big technological reveal for Batman was that he had come up with a way to monitor all the mobile devices in the city to locate the Joker. And when I saw that, I chuckled, and because I already knew that cellular networks can already do that. And in fact, they do that. And what they are doing is trolling for combinations of keywords that might be considered something that needs to be investigated.
Echelon?
That I don't know, but I do know that
Oh.
they were searching for certain keywords like, bomb, location, individual. Oh, flag that one,
Yeah.
But Kat's right, though. Most of this spying technology is mostly to get into your pocketbooks. They want what they can sell you. So that's as insidious as most of it gets. But what about that other 5 or 7%?
Yeah, and
Who
everything
knows,
we
right?
can
Who
and say will be used against us in the
Sure.
court of law.
That's
This
right.
is the lamest.
Hey, you know what?
This is the lamest cyberpunk dystopia ever.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know what you
Yeah.
say these days if anything, the recordings are used against you? I say, damn, those AI voices have gotten good, because I didn't say that.
Right.
Yeah, there you go. Man, oh man. All right. True Believer, thank you so much. We're going to be wrapping up the show, so I'm going to have to say good night to you, my friend.
Well, thanks for letting me on and tell you my little bit of trivia.
No problem. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Good night, everybody.
Excelsior.
All right. Now, before we wrap up, Kat, Ralts, Ishi, where can they find you? I guess we'll go with Kat, and then we'll do that. We'll do the clockwise.
You can find me at 01publishing.com, the number 0, the number 1, publishing.com. I am also on Instagram and Twitter as Night Editor, KNIGHT Editor.
And you can go with me. You can find my stuff on Amazon under Behold Humanity or RALTS BLOODTHORNE. Other than that, my Twitter gets suspended on a routine basis, so don't bother. And other than that, I hate being anywhere. You can find my stuff on Royal Road or Reddit under First Contact. But that's about it.
All right.
And again, I'm ISHIRO FINNEY, author and alien in a human suit, and I recommend you go out and get the best damn pop culture book you'll ever read, Boobs of Steel Part 1. And if you're in the market for, back in the day when Vertigo comics were actually enjoyable and good, and you want to go back to books and stories like Hellblazer, check out my graphic novel series, Case File Arkham. All of this available on Amazon.
All right, very nice. And thank you guys, everybody in the chat, for being here. Everybody on the panel, Kat, Ralts, Jay, thank you guys for being here tonight, too. Really appreciate your time and the conversation. If you guys in the chat have not checked it out, especially, we've got the Alterna Comics campaign right now for 4 new comics. Check it out. 4 new comics for $9. You can go to alternacomics.com/funding. There are 9 days left. We had a big day yesterday and a semi-big day today. So we're getting up there, getting closer to the goal. We got less than $2,000 away from that goal with 9 days left. And also, on the King Cryptid campaign, we got a new moon special tonight. You guys can pick up, it's your last chance to do so. You can pick up an Old Man of the Mountain die-cut 3-inch magnet. That's $3, free shipping worldwide. This is your last chance to get one today and tomorrow. You can get that on either Indiegogo or you can go to alternacomics.com and pick that up. Thank you guys again, and I'll see you guys soon. Everybody have a wonderful night, a great tomorrow, all that good stuff. And Kat, Jay, Ralts, thank you guys again. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, everybody. Have a great night and an even better tomorrow. I'll see you guys soon. All the best.